studios in Oklahoma City. You're watching The Press Row, brought to you by Papa John's. I'm Jenny Carlson here with Barry Trammell. Time for We Pick 'em, Barry. We're saving the big one to last, but we got some good ones before that. Here's one from the SEC. Florida goes to LSU. Who you got in this one, Barry?
Well, I've got LSU, but it's not easy for the Les Miles Tigers. LSU's already played Georgia in an interred division game. LSU has two of the heavyweights from the SEC East. Alabama has 0. Clearly, the SEC stacked the schedule against LSU in favor of Alabama. It's going to be tough for LSU to win the division. They got to beat Florida on Saturday to stay in contention. Florida's got a good defense, but not enough offense to keep up. I think LSU wins it.
Yeah, I'm going with LSU in this one as well. But, you know, how weird is it that Florida, a really pretty good Florida team, you look at on LSU's schedule and say this is one of their easier games. You know, being at home, obviously, Florida losing their starting quarterback earlier this year. So I'm going LSU, but yeah, it's a tough road to hoe right now for Les Miles and his Tigers. All right, what about this one out west, Barry? Oregon goes to Washington. Any chance Washington helps out the Sooners starting to bud national championship hopes here?
I mean, you never know. I actually got to see the end of Washington-Stanford the other night. The Huskies played Stanford very tough. Very well could have taken that game to overtime. Steve Sarkisian's team's playing very well. He's got Oregon at home. On the other hand, I think Oregon has the best team in the nation, and I think the Ducks just have too much offense. I think Washington will make it a game, but I think Oregon wins it at the end.
Yep, I'm with you too. I think this becomes maybe a tighter game than Oregon will have the rest of the year, maybe barring the Stanford game. I think that's going to be a heck of a game. But obviously having to go on the road will test the Ducks. Washington, it'll be a crazy scene. They get really pretty darn good crowds there, even when they're not great. But this obviously a big game with a pretty good Washington squad on the field. I think it's going to be a tough atmosphere, but I'll go with the Ducks in this one. Sorry, Sooners. All right, what about this Big Ten matchup, Barry? Northwestern a week ago had the huge game. They lose late. Now they got to go to Wisconsin. What a tough couple games here for Northwestern.
Bad spot in the schedule for Northwestern. Wisconsin's a tough place to play. A very good team. Northwestern did go all in to beat Ohio State. I think it's going to be a very difficult thing for Northwestern to win this game. But I do think they got a good squad. Pat Fitzgerald's an excellent coach. Wisconsin sort of retooling under Gary Anderson. But I think Wisconsin at home gets it done.
I'm going to go with Northwestern. It was a disappointment last week, obviously, for the Wildcats against Ohio State, but they showed a pretty darn good team because I think Ohio State's got a really nice squad. I don't think they're one of the best teams in the country. They may still get to play for a national championship. You just never know. But I think that game was really telling about how good Northwestern is. So I think they rebound, but, man, this is a tough road to have to go on the road and face a pretty good Wisconsin team. They're really going to have to bring it again this week. All right, Barry, what about this Big 12 game? Baylor finally goes on the road, and they go to Manhattan to play K-State.
Well, Baylor's been in a phenomenal offensive team. 69 points against Wofford is their lowest total of the season. They've been in the 70s ever since. But Baylor is still untested. Baylor, at this point, is where West Virginia was a year ago, which was everybody thinking West Virginia is unstoppable, a national title contender. Baylor is unproving. Here's the stat of the day. Baylor has not won a road game in conference since 2010 when they went to Austin and won. Lost 8 straight Big 12 road games. Only road win in that time at Monroe a year ago in Monroe, Louisiana. They beat Louisiana Monroe 47-42. I'm going with the Cats in the upset. I'm anxious to see.
You're back on the Christmas card list for Bill Snyder,
I'm
Barry.
anxious to see if Bill Snyder, he's got a mediocre team. They're not all that good, but they've seen this offense to some degree a week ago. They'll be ready for it. If they can physically match up is the question. I'm going to predict they do and get a narrow victory.
I'm going with Baylor. I think Baylor's really good. I don't know how good, and I think this is really going to test them. I got to see K-State with my own eyes a week ago, and with Daniel Sams, if K-State goes with Daniel Sams and allows him to play the way that we saw him play last week, he threw, I think, 21 passes against Oklahoma State. He'd thrown 4 in the games before that combined. So he was not ineffective. Yes, he threw it to Oklahoma State a few times, but that defense is pretty good. Baylor's defense, to me, Barry, that's the biggest question. Can their defense get the job done when they have to? And they haven't had to yet because they haven't played anybody good enough to keep up with that offense. So I think this is going to be a real test for them. I'm going with Baylor, though, just by a little bit. All right, Barry, let's get right to the big game. OU, Texas, obviously down at the Cotton Bowl. Who you got in this one?
Well, I got the Sooners, and the question is, can Texas keep it close? 2 straight years we've seen 55-17 and then 63-21. The crazy thing about last year, 63-21, it wasn't that close. It was 36-2 at halftime. Texas gets a little bit late to make it to whatever level of respect it was. This is it's an interesting point in this rivalry, in that if OU gets a solid victory, 28-17, 27-17, something like that, everybody's going to walk away saying, what was wrong with the Sooners, not with the Longhorns? So the question, I think, is how bad did the Sooners win by? I'm going to say a bunch. I'm going to predict another blowout.
Yeah, I'm going with OU in this one as well. You pick the winner of the previous year in this year's game, but you'd have been hard pressed to do anything but pick the Sooners this year, even if Texas would have somehow won last year, because they're just a lot better than Texas is this year. You know, we've seen Texas's defense struggle with the quarterback run game. We know OU has a quarterback run game. We've seen them struggle to put points on the board against okay defenses. I think Oklahoma's got a really pretty solid defense, even though they lose Corey Nelson. So crazy things have happened in this series, but not this crazy. If Texas were to win this game, I mean, it would be the craziest thing, I think, to ever happen in this series. I don't see there's any way of that happening, Barry.
No, this would be Mac Brown rising up off his deathbed.
Wow, no doubt. All right, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoma.